Tensions between the US and Iran are escalating sharply once again, even as preparations begin for the second round of peace talks aimed at ending weeks of conflict and restoring a fragile ceasefire. US President Donald Trump has confirmed that American negotiators, including Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, are expected to travel to Islamabad for fresh discussions with Iranian representatives. Despite the planned diplomatic outreach, the rhetoric from Washington has taken a hard turn. Trump has accused Iran of violating the ceasefire terms, alleging attacks on vessels in the Strait of Hormuz. In a strongly worded statement, he warned that if Tehran does not agree to a deal, the US could target key Iranian infrastructure, including power plants and bridges. The situation in the Strait of Hormuz, meanwhile, remains especially volatile. Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC's naval units reportedly fired on commercial vessels attempting to pass through this strategic waterway. Among the ships affected were Indian-flagged vessels, raising concerns in New Delhi and adding another layer of diplomatic sensitivity to the crisis. Iran, meanwhile, has rejected these accusations and has in turn accused the US of maintaining an illegal naval blockade. Tehran has called the move a violation of international law and a breach of the ceasefire agreement again. Iranian officials also insist that their actions are defensive, while reaffirming their nuclear stance and rejecting US demands for a complete halt to uranium enrichment. And now, adding to the tension, Iranian military sources claim their missile and drone systems have been significantly replenished during this ceasefire period. With accusations flying on both sides and military activity continuing in the region, the path towards meaningful negotiations remains uncertain. And even as diplomatic channels are set to reopen in Islamabad, we have Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, former Indian diplomat. We have Major General Ashwani Sivach, defense and geopolitical expert. We have Dilip Chinoy, former Secretary General of FICCI, set to join us in a short while. Let me now begin with Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. Talk to us, Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev. We are on uncharted waters, as it were, when it comes to Donald Trump and the messages that he puts out.
That's very true. The waters are not only uncharted, they are very choppy. Strait of Hormuz has two blockades, one by Iran, another one by United States, and through them, nothing is supposed to pass. We have already had incidents of two Indian ships having been fired at, despite at least one of them having had prior clearance of Iranian side. Now, to make sense of this very complex and evolving situation is difficult, but one would give it a try. Firstly, we have Mr. Trump trying to maximize his rhetoric and his maximum pressure policies against Iran that have been in place since 2018 have acquired a new sting with the blockade and rhetoric of civilizational destruction, etc., back in place. Now, there seem to be some echo of that within Tehran. Circumstantial evidence suggests that triumphalism on Friday by President Trump resulted in some heartburning in Tehran, with negotiators being asked to account for Trump's claim that Strait of Hormuz has been lifted forever. Then again, the Iranians have agreed not to pursue nuclear program forever and are willing to hand over the enriched uranium to Americans, as Mr. Trump had claimed on Friday. A strong rebuttal had to be issued by the speaker himself, Mr. Ghalibaf, saying 7 social media statements within 1 hour by Mr. Trump were all false, and Iran doesn't agree to anything. In fact, that led to uh, the Strait of Hormuz blockade being reimposed the next day, uh, yesterday, and further leading to confusion and a very complex evolving situation. Now, this was happening while Asim Munir was still in Tehran. He had to stay there for 3 days, and whatever he has uh, sort of conjured up in Tehran, there was no statement issued on his return. And Mr. Trump has continued to blow at the both end of hot and cold uh, today. He has mentioned that he is going to send his team with Mr. Vance and his two permanent negotiators to Islamabad tomorrow. Iranian side has said that they have not made any decision to send a team to Islamabad for negotiations. As of now, they say that unless America lifts the blockade on the Iranian ports, then they may not even go for negotiations. Uh, this happening when the ceasefire uh, 2 week limit is going to end in next 48 hours, and it's anybody's guess
Right.
whether we're going to have negotiations or bombs falling as Mr. Trump has threatened on Iran.
Yeah.
Uh, with all that put together, it's a very complicated situation, and
Absolutely.
I think next 48 hours would be of seminal importance.
Absolutely, it's a diplomatic nightmare, if I may, for the negotiations to, to happen, in this context. Major Ashwani Sivach, Trump is back to square one. He has threatened Iran that he will be striking, the US will be striking critical infrastructure, power projects, and bridges. Not the first time, but that definitely escalates. In the escalation matrix, it takes it up very high, doesn't it?
Absolutely. See, Krishna, what is happening is it is more of a rhetoric. He is trying to put pressure on Iran before these talks take place. See, he knows very well that he can hit on the power plants as well as on the bridges in Iran. But Iran has already told that if US does it, it will strike in all the infrastructure in Middle East and including desalination plants. So it is tit for tat. The loss is going to be huge on the either side. I don't think that will be a wise step by the US, and they know it. I of the impression, whatever it is, Donald Trump want an honorable exit. He want to now have a sort of face-saving formula. The reason is simple that his popularity is going down day by day in US. People don't want war. There are midterm election in November, and as it is, the ceasefire is going on. So he want to milk as much as possible before the second sort of talks take place. All said and done, that US also has to realize it, that if they do not concede to anything of Iran, and then the talks will not take place. What is that? In fact, the point is that Iran has agreed to lift the ban, especially on Strait of Hormuz, but the US has not lifted that ban of naval blockade, and that has now changed the whole scenario. But to me, it looks like that the negotiators on the either side are now reaching in Islamabad, one led by JD Vance and possibly another led by Iran speaker. Though they have not accepted it, I'm sure they were going to come. Then this sort of negotiation will take place, because I still feel Iran also don't want a war to prolong, because economically it is hurting them. Their assets have been frozen. If the war stops even in a days to come, there will be economic disaster in Iran. So I don't think Iran also wants. Only country which wants this war to prolong is Israel. because Israel wants this war to prolong for the reason it feels that Iran should become more weak, and it wants to sort out Hezbollah, because that is the biggest problem as far as Israel is concerned in its northern portion, and it wants to go up to Litani River, make a sort of a buffer zone. So all said and done, to me it looks like that there is a great hope in second round of talk which will take place in Islamabad, because both whatever rhetoric Donald Trump is trying to do, but certainly he want a honorable exit, and that can only happen if you give and take. It can't happen that it is my way and or highway. I suppose something will concrete will come out of the second round of the talk, Krishna.
Okay. Hope is what is floating at the stage. Dilip Chinoy, let me bring this across to you at the stage. Tell us, we're having this conversation at a time when the Houthis have threatened to close down the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. The Strait of Hormuz is in a double chokehold from both the Iranian side and the US side. Come Monday morning, you're going to find all of this, the markets, reacting to all of this. But the fact of the matter is that there is peace talks set to take place on that same Monday.
Yeah, Krishna, if you look at it, the markets have been reflecting the perceived holding of peace talks, perceived failure of peace talks, perceived success of peace talks, and opening up or closure of the Hormuz, Strait of Hormuz. So the market is actually reflecting this, and and what happens is if it flips from one side to the other, the market, instead of going up, goes down. So, and it's not necessarily an Indian phenomenon, it's a global phenomenon. So the markets are actually reacting to the statements being made by different players in this, and in some case, also the understanding of analysts on how this is going. But, Monday is far away. Monday, although it may be tomorrow morning, but when the markets open in the morning, it may be one thing, but what happens during the day, if the Iranians don't come, as is being said in some quarters, then the markets may react differently. If the Iranians come, there might be one reaction, the market might go up, but then if there's if before the day ends, if there are signals coming out that the talks may not succeed, the markets may fall again. So it's as it was said earlier by the panelists, that it's just on the kind of statements of one particular person or now two particular people. So it's nothing can be said for sure until news comes in one way or the other.
Well, there is a big question mark over here, and that is whether the Iranian representatives are going to land up over there. Ambassador Mahesh Sachdev, what do you see on that front happening? Do you see a possible no-show by Iran representatives?
I won't rule that out.
Okay.
Although I agree with Mr. Chinoy that on the whole, it's in Iran's interest to participate in the talks. They have had a very massive destruction, and despite their bravado, there are upper limits to what you can do when you're facing the most modern arsenal of Iran, of Israel, and the United States. At the same time, I think they see it a winning card in terms of Strait of Hormuz, and the blockade, they believe, is going to put economic pain right across the international economy, and particularly in United States economy. And they believe that Mr. Trump has the clock ticking with regard to midterm polls and his own opinion, as well as the inflation being high. So with all that put together, they think the time is on their side. Now, Iranians have to get their own act together as well. Foreign Minister has already been sharply criticized by the radicals led by IRGC for declaring Strait of Hormuz open in response to a 10-day truce announced in Lebanon. while Lebanese president thanked United States for that truce as well as Saudi Arabia, uh, but he did not mention Iran at all, and there was no mention of Hezbollah. Hezbollah itself didn't want the truce to come into effect, and they don't want any negotiations. Now, Mr. Trump has announced that next week there are going to be negotiations in Washington between the Lebanese and Israelis. Now, if that negotiation takes place and is successful, uh, then what happens to the Hezbollah as a proxy of Iran? The whole idea is to hive off Lebanese situation from Iranian situation and have less one card that Iran has been using for past so many decades. So we all those aspects are germane to the debate or the friction between radicals as well as moderates in Iran. And right now, the radicals led by IRGC seem to have had the upper hand. They are going to decide whether the existing team that attended the first round is going to go or whether they're going to have somebody else sent there, and at what level that is commensurate with J.D. Vance as Vice President of United States. Now, they've had two rounds before, and both these rounds were followed by war actions by Israel and United States. So here you go. If you are sitting in Tehran taking a decision whether you go there and come with a disagreement and the war starts, or whether you don't go and the war starts, I think the call has to be made. Uh, on the face of it, going there and then declining to sign on the dotted American line would perhaps serve them better with their vis-a-vis the global opinion that they were not the ones who turned down the offer of talks. Otherwise, the United States would turn around and blame them for scuttling negotiations altogether. Thank you.
Fair enough. Major Ashwani Sivach, that there begs another question. Even if there is an Iranian delegation that arrives and strikes a deal with the US, what are the chances that it will be enforced in full by the IRGC and the other parts of the Iranian administration?
No, that is a big problem which is occurring today, that there is a rift between IRGC and also the political parties. Now, will the IRGC follow the diktats which is given by especially by the speaker as well as by the foreign minister, because they seemingly looks to be a moderate face. As far as the supreme leader is concerned, Mustafa Khamenei, he is injured, and mainly the decisions are taken by IRGC. But having said that, there are three, four issues which stand out very clearly. You see, the point is that Iran also not in a position to fight for a long, because it economically hitting it hard, and they will like to have some sort of a honorable deal themselves. At the same time, they had a sort of uh, basically a plus point by blocking a state of Hormuz. That was a bargaining chip, but that is no more there, because after the US has put a counter naval blockade, that is no more there. It is either you remove or we will remove. Otherwise, we will not remove it. In the sense that as on today, by putting a naval blockade by the Americans, this is a masterstroke which they played without uh, putting boots on the ground and having casualty. They have stopped all the ships which are going to Iranian ports or coming out of Iranian ports. So I'm sure, considering all these things, that bargaining chip is no more there with Iran as far as state of Hormuz is concerned completely. There is a chance of some negotiation and some sort of give and take may take place, because the thing is that neither America wants this war to continue nor the Iran wants the war to continue. And the only difference today is, earlier before 28th February, the Iran was on a receiving end. As on today, Iran is now feeling that they are victorious, and they will possibly will look into the eyes of Americans, and they will ask for a honorable sort of a deal. And to that extent, how things fan out, time will only tell. To me, it looks like there are two, three sticking points. One is, as far as the nuclear weapons are concerned, that moratorium, which the Iran is saying that they can do it for 5 years, that they will stop enriching uranium for next 5 years, whereas the US want for 20 years. And the second point is that enriched uranium, which is more under 400 kg, the Iranians are very reluctant to give it to even to the Chinese and the Russian. That is the two very sticking points which are still there. But I'm sure once the talks will take place, let's not get bogged down by rhetoric, because Donald Trump is believed to be passing commands and changing thereafter. To me, three things will happen. One is that you will find both the side, the delegation will now come in basically Islamabad. They will try to work out. In the meantime, they will increase the time as far as the ceasefire is concerned, and the fight will not take place. There will be a chance of some sort of a deal taking place, which will suit both, because the war is not suiting either of them. War suits only to Israel. Israel, whether it will abide by Americans or not, the time will tell. But to me, it looks like the Israel will also abide, at least temporarily. As far as Houthi rebel is concerned, they are very strong in Red Sea. They can close Babel and Mandeb. And if they do that, 20% stoppage in Strait of Hormuz, another 15% in Bab al Mandeb. Imagine the catastrophic effect it will have on the economy of the world.
The impact on global economy is said to be catastrophic, Dilip Chinoy. That's the one single word that can be best described. And in that context, there'll be greater pressures on this round of talks and negotiations from other world powers. Now, everybody is involved in terms of opening up the Strait of Hormuz. It can't continue to be the way it is right now in a double chokehold. So, the talks, even if they don't arrive at a final deal, do you expect them to at least give some clarity, some breakthrough when it comes to at least the Strait of Hormuz?
Yeah, Krishna. So you look at it, and you're putting this whole caption there about let's just take the oil, right? And let's take from the time it started in February till about let's say few days ago, over 500 million barrels of crude oil and condensate have actually not moved from one place to the other, and actually have been knocked offline globally. Now, this is not something which you can replace. In addition to that, going forward, there are some refineries and some oil producing and gas producing things in the states, in countries around Iran, which have been hit, and it is not determined what is the extent of the damage and how much of the LPG and or the gas has gone offline. But if I just take the 500 million barrels of crude that have not made it to the markets or not made it there, it's resulted in three things actually. The first is the price of crude itself has gone up. So from roughly $67 a barrel before the war started to a peak of 110 barrels during the war, there is a huge increase there. But if you look at the 500 million barrels of crude and condensate that have been knocked off globally and take an average price of about $100 a barrel, it's about $50 billion of lost revenue or lost oil. Now, no one would actually understand the impact on the economy or impact globally on the economy. So I'll just translate it into two sets of figures which will give your viewers a sense of the impact. So losing 500 million barrels of oil during this period, right, is like halting road transport worldwide for 11 days. So imagine the loss to the economy that will take. The second figure, which is again an approximation, is like eliminating global aviation for 10 weeks. So, so there is a cascading impact on the economy. And if we keep, the double blockade or blockade of the Strait of Hormuz, if you're going to keep so much oil off the market, it's going to impact everybody. And then, even if you look at it in India's perspective, right? So we were importing, at $67 a barrel, it was roughly about $335 million dollars a day. That was the import thing. At a peak of 110, it's about $550 million dollars per day. So over the 45 to 60 days of the conflict, we've paid about 10 billion, or approximately 92,000 crore, more than it would have actually done on the normal prices. What it does is it actually, it does a supply, chain choke point, which is the Strait of Hormuz, which is 40% of India's crude and 91% of our LPG and cooking gas. Again, the whole insurance premiums have gone up. There's a remittance risk to India. So there are many different sets here. Wholesale price inflation in India would go up. I mean, it'll happen in most of the countries around the world. But there are many different pain points for the economy. Input costs are going up. The government is doing a great, job at controlling the fertilizer prices. They have actually done duty reduction in crude.
Right.
But all of that will amount to, more increased CAD, more increased spending, and given the physical shortage and rationing to the commercial sector, that's again going to have another cascading effect on production. There are some energy-intensive sectors around and in specific geographies which have actually shut down. So it's a challenge, and therefore, from India's perspective, if US and Iran have this discussion and come to an agreement, and many
Yeah,
other geographies, it'll be very, very positive.